You aren't bad at calisthenics because you aren't training hard enough. It's because you're treating it as if it's bodybuilding. So many people are falling for this hypertrophy trap of calisthenics, making for so few people getting their actual skills and strength that they really wanted to get in the first place. But I also fell for it. I would do these isolations and stretch-based exercises, and I would still look so bad. Now I look much better, even though my main focus is strength and skills. The reason why I'm bigger now is because these stretch-based and bodybuilding stuff are all 10% of the whole equation. The main equation, bro, is just going consistently to the gym. And if you're not doing that, how are you expecting to progress? This bodybuilding stuff won't cover up for that. If you started calisthenics a couple months or a year ago, you wanted to unlock those cool skills, the muscle up, the handstand push up, or those cool weighted dips, weighted pull-ups, stuff like that, you didn't want to come here, bro, for the, bodybuilding stuff. So stick to your main goal. Right now you're deviating from one to the other, making for worse gains because you don't even start seeing progress on one method that you're using, and then you immediately switch to another one. Everyone wants to learn those cool skills. Don't expect to muscle up if you're doing these slow tempo, slow negative bodybuilding push-ups, because that is not specific to the exercise. This is a mistake I made. I reached 18 pull-ups before I got my first muscle up. And the reason was I was doing the slow tempo. If I were to train explosively, maybe with 12 pull-ups, I would have gotten my first muscle up. So make sure you always train specifically towards your goal. And you have to do a lot less isolations. 70% of your sets need to be the main movement or a variation of the main movement. So a main movement would be pull-ups, and a variation of that would be holding at the top or doing one normal pull-up and then doing the top part again. So 70% needs to be sets like that. Then 30% needs to be isolations, that could be, but actually the main thing of those 30% should be a different movement using the same muscles. So that could be using rows for pull-ups. And instead of doing upper, lower, or push-pull legs, you choose some main movements. So that could be squats, pull-ups, dips, muscle-ups, handstands, for example. And you base your routine around those. So you have one day could be primary pull-ups, secondary dips, for example, right? So your primary focus would be pull-ups. You would do most of your sets for pull-ups, and then the secondary would be the dips. So it's your secondary focus. Here's an example of how you would base a routine around this. So you would have, let's say, 5 days a week, like I show here, and you will have a primary for each day, a primary exercise, then a secondary or a tertiary exercise. And there's also an example workout that I put there, and a way to design your own workouts, the top sets, the back offs. Let me just go over that quickly. So your top sets are the main sets. These are just the most contribute the most to your strength and hypertrophy. Then you have your back off, which is just for accumulating volume, a little bit of hypertrophy. And then you have 1 to 2, sometimes 3, but usually 2 support exercises. These are exercises that complement the main movement but are not the main movement. So that could be, for example, the static hold pull-up at the top. So you do that, you lock it out and hold it. That could be super deep dips if you're bad at the bottom part. That could be bouncing in the bottom of the squat once. So many different ways to do this. You can also add isolations into this, like I said, and then the other type of support exercise is a different movement but same muscles. So that could be rows for pull-ups, like I said, and this kind of targets the muscles from a different way, so you don't get imbalances, because if you do only pull-ups, for example, your mid-back won't be that strong, so you'll want to add in some horizontal rows or some elbow flared rows to target more of that mid-back, so you don't imbalance your back. If you want to know the proper form for pull-ups, I have my free community, link in the description, where I break down all of this difficult stuff. And the benefit to having a program like this is you have, number one, a lot more specificity. Specificity is the number one thing you need. If you want to get better at math, you go do math. Maybe if you not train physics, but if you learn some physics, maybe you'll indirectly get better at math because it has some math, but just go and learn math if you want to get better at math. So same thing here. If you want to go get better at pull-ups, you don't train rows bodybuilding style, you train pull-ups calisthenics style. Maybe you train them explosively if you want to get better at your muscle-ups, right? Number one, that's specificity. Number two is your frequency, how many times a week you train them. For example, if you do upper lower 2 times a week upper, you're only getting 2 times a week of pull-ups, and you're probably not even doing that much. You're maybe doing like 3 sets max. So you get a lot more like times per week of doing it. And even though some days are less, just your body like having the opportunity to adapt towards it again, just having that opportunity of training it once more will directly get better at it, because you just have so many more times you're doing it. If you imagine that one guy, like I said, who trains it so much more often, he'll just get better at them. By training more frequently, what we're also able to do is have more efficient sets. So your efficient sets are the first sets you do. Your first 2 to 3 sets always give you the most bang for buck, usually the most growth, the most strength, the most signal to grow to your muscles, because they are the first ones. As you keep going, you get diminishing returns around 6 to 8 reps, somewhere there. 6 to 8 sets. To make a program like this, you first have to find out what exercises, what movements you want to use. So for my example, I put here legs, pull-ups, dips, muscle-ups, and handstands. Legs is also just like squats, but since we're only training legs once a week, I put it as just legs, not squats, so we have more focus. But anyways, how you'll do this is you'll figure out the importance of each one. So for me, dips, muscle-ups, pull-ups are the most important. So I would put 2 exercises for each one of those. That would be the primary and the secondary exercise, the primary, secondary day of those. And then for handstands, I would do them 3 times a week, as they're very little fatiguing. You could even do them 4 times if you really wanted to. Legs 1 time a week, as we don't really have much space in the schedule, though you could also do 2. But you kind of get the vibe, I think. You really, you base it around which exercises you want, and then you fill out how many days of each. Essentially, you choose the importance, and then depending on how many days you're working out, so let's say if you're training 5 times a week, I would say you can have some 2 to 3 exercises you do, let's say 2 exercises that you do 3 times a week, and then some other ones which you do once or twice, or maybe 3 times, depending on if it's less fatiguing. So as you can see, we have 2 rest days, and then we have primary legs, secondary dips on the first day. So I just put that because we just had a rest day, so it's good to have legs after a rest day so you're fresh. And then I put primary pull-up, secondary handstand. So you always want to have the primary one first, and then the secondary or tertiary one afterwards. This is the example, right, of the primary pull-up, secondary handstand. Then third, I put primary handstand, secondary muscle-up. So here you would do tons of holds. Maybe if you're working towards handstand push-ups, you would do handstand push-up negatives, handstand push-up attempts. Then for secondary muscle-up, you would probably do some explosive pull-ups, lots of explosive pull-ups, maybe 4 or 5 sets of 1 or 2 reps. I'm not gonna get into that. That was one of my previous videos on training more specifically for skills. But yeah, then you have your rest, right? Just a rest day. And after that, you have your primary dip, tertiary handstand. So here you would do lots of sets on dips, and maybe 4 sets of handstands. So very few handstands, they're not even that fatiguing. So you would do probably something start off with 3x5 on dips, maybe 4x6, 4x8, something like that. So you start off with dips, then you have a back off for dips, or you do higher reps. I'll show the table once again. Or you do higher reps, higher sets, but lower intensity, so lower RPE. RPE is just the rate of perceived exertion. That's the intensity, right? So RPE 8 is 2 reps in reserve, RPE 9, 1 rep in reserve, stuff like that. And then you would have your support exercises like I show. Then you have your secondary muscle up, secondary pull up. This is a really easy day. Just a lot of pulling on this one. Here you can also add in some isolations if you want to, because it's secondary for both, and no primary, so you have an opportunity to add in more volume at lower intensity. So here you would probably do something like explosive pull-ups, maybe some band muscle-ups, maybe some muscle-up negatives, maybe some weighted pull-ups, stuff like that. Programming like this is not that easy, but once you get the hang of it, once you start get the ball rolling, understand sort of how it works, maybe you have your first week of your program set up like this, you'll honestly feel the benefits. You'll feel that the weight will feel lighter. You'll feel that the exercise will feel lighter. You'll feel that you have like better control over the movement because you're able to do it so many more times a week instead of doing it like 2 times, for example. If you want to learn the full guide on how to make your own programs, I have my free community and courses, link is in the description, where I break down all of these difficult things into easy courses, easy posts, and tables, text, all these different things. You can also hop on a call with me so we can personalize the program to your own needs and not whatever like I put down in this video as an example. You get me? So it'll make it much easier for you to reach your goals, make it much faster because you're actually able to train specifically towards those goals. If you want to join today, that is for 100% free. Weightisthenics, link below. See you, bro. Keep overloading.